Welcome to Speak Sex. I am your host, Eurydice. Thank you for listening. Thank you for trusting me as your sex whisperer. Today's guests, I'm very happy to introduce to you, are the founders of the group running the Cosmic Cunt conferences and now the Church of the Cosmic Cunt here in Miami, which was a 3-week-long event, portal, and celebration of the rise of the divine feminine and the rebirth of consciousness. So they have been doing this for years around the world, these conferences, let's just call them in short. But this is the first time in Miami that they set themselves up as the Church of the Cosmic Cunt, and they had a long-lasting series of events. So they were open 7 days a week, and they had many daily events. So it's up to like something like 40 events in 3 weeks. And their purpose was basically to bring us all together to experience this new feminine and, female body-based paradigm. So my guests today are Frida Future, who's the original founder of Cosmic Cunt, and Sarah Brujita, who is now the co-founder and co-creator of the concept, and Luna Elisa. The triad of the three of them is in charge of Church of the Cosmic Cunt. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And they'll tell us much more about the concept, the project, and the future, Frida Future, I'll start with you, of Cunt awareness.
Yes,
right?
yes, of consciousness.
Consciousness.
Yes, all of it,
yes.
Absolutely. So it's funny because you said this new thing of the body consciousness and of connecting to the feminine. And we like to use this phrase, the ancient future, because it feels less like a new thing that we're discovering or like a problem that we're solving. Rather, it's a return. It's a return to a connectedness to the earth and to the body and to the quantum information that moves through us in the space of our feelings and our emotions. And yeah, it's a celebration of that. So not only for women and for those in feminine identified bodies, but also recognizing that all of us exist on a spectrum of masculine and feminine energy, and that accessing this aspect of the feminine is something that is, healing and juicy,
right, exactly.
and relevant for all of us, no matter what your gender identification.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the feminine body, it's so badly sexualized and I'm going to say also commodified, because
Yes.
it's used to sell so much garbage, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So when people hear the word cunt, they're like, oh, that's a 4-letter word. It's a dirty word. I can't say that. I can't say that in public. And it's like, if you take a moment, right, to think about it, it's where we all come from. And there's, instead of the word making us feel in awe, right? In the present makes us feel kind of like dirty and grossed out and uncomfortable, because that's what the patriarchy has taught us, right?
Yes, yes.
To demonize it or to vilify it,
To be afraid of it.
To be afraid of it. Yeah.
Absolutely. And part of our philosophy is peeling back those layers, unlearning the things that society and economy in whose interest it is that you don't feel complete in your own body, that you don't feel good enough. Of course, it is in their interest to divide us from, our integrated selves, from being able to access the whole spectrum of masculine and feminine, from our sexuality.
Yes. I would venture to say that what we're doing now is radical, not in so much in reclaiming words as a radical thing,
Mm-hmm.
but in the space of declaring that now, henceforth, This is the vibration that's here in the word. It's not an argument. It's not a negotiation. We don't need the Webster's dictionary to approve this new flavor that we're adding to the popular awareness around this word. It's this embodied spell casting.
Yeah,
of feeling,
exactly.
Feeling the power, feeling the inherent firm ground that we're on in our power and in this expression, and then like, you know, here comes cunt flying out of my mouth. You're gonna take it as a joke. You're gonna take it as an offense. You're gonna take it like it's trigger. It doesn't matter. But I'm sending out that vibration.
We aim
and
to normalize it.
Yes,
and to place it in its proper context, which is very different from the one that, again, the dominant culture has forced upon us. I have to open a parenthesis for a second and tell you guys that my first novel, which I wrote when I was like 21, it's called F32, and it was published by Virago Press in England, so a feminist press, a well-known feminist press. Had the word cunt in every sentence. So long before the vagina monologues, which, like, in my opinion, were so, mainstream and scared. Vanilla to the end. I wrote this book, and it's the story of a vagina. It's a story of it's like a fable. So it's the story of this woman who gets assaulted in the street, and someone cuts at her, cunt, and it comes out, but instead of, like in the next chapter, it becomes, that's the fabulous element, it gets to have a life of its own. Yes. So the world doesn't know how to identify it. And F32 is the f-stop of the camera, because in a couple of chapters, you see the world through the cunt. So it changes the way everything looks, of course. But then, there's also the slapstick element, like the cunt goes on talk shows on TV, and it goes to the museum, and it's mistaken for art piece, and, it ends up in kitchens, in restaurants, and it keeps, being mistaken for everything but what it is, because it's disembodied.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
But they all love it because they don't know what it is. So everybody's very fond of this creature. But then on the personal level, which is really why I wrote the book, was that the protagonist, who's a stand-in for, I think, most of us, definitely was for me at the time. I was young. Started off feeling very cut off from her sexuality and her vagina, because she felt that, her mind and her psyche and her sense of self was always kind of beholden and, entrapped by these lower urges, so she would get turned on, and she would have to deal with these guys and stop what she was doing to deal with the, whatever, the desire or the horniness, and she didn't like it. She felt that dichotomy that we've inherited from our Judeo-Christian tradition, that, the body, especially the sexual body, is completely separate from the soul or the mind or whatever,
Yes.
And instead of realizing that no, your vagina is you, so there is no it, it's I, right? And being holistic, she didn't have that sense in the beginning, but of course by the end, when finally they managed to reunite, it's we, it's I,
Yes.
This is I, my vagina is I, so I, the sexual I, is also the only I know. So that was the purpose of that book, and I hope some people got it.
Oh my God.
We're about to get it.
Yeah,
We're
exactly.
about to buy a copy.
So I'm definitely a long-term, believer of exactly what, you're talking about, bringing the cunt out in the forefront of human experience and using it to redefine and reclaim, our truth.
Yes. I mean, there are so many facets of this for us to look at, right? Because when we're talking about the cosmic cunt, the infinitude of divinity, right? The high and the low, the full breadth of tantric weaving. So just listening to you describe the novel just now, I pick out the moment of the protagonist feeling her lower urges and being frustrated by them and feeling why is this tearing me from what I really want to be working on? And how so frustrating and so confronting to my ego to have this thing down here that pulls me in a different direction. And I just lit upon that moment, and I think about what our project is like and what it's up to. And my vision is for that protagonist-esque woman to experience her urges or her diversion from the ego's intention and to like enjoy that side story and integrate it as part of the same central story rather than feeling it as something apart and to be able to communicate about what that is as she integrates it. Oh, this worked and this didn't, and felt so good, and maybe I don't really need to finish this project, and actually my pussy is leading me somewhere completely different, and maybe I can let my pussy lead me because I trust her and I know that's part of me.
Yeah, that's your gut.
So
exactly,
the
cunt gut.
The cunt
gut.
Precisely so.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
The pussy.
And also, it should be noted that like the ego is definitely male, right? Because there is no other language. This is where we live. All the words we have are made by men. All the concepts, the laws, the rules, whatever, right, are made by men.
Until now, we've got a few.
But so like when we are thinking, I mean, even me, I think all of us unconsciously, when we are like working in this culture, we're like fake men. To a degree, that's the only way to like speak a language that the system understands and get, awarded, rewarded, promoted, whatever. But when you go from the pussy instinct, right, from the cunt core,
yes,
or the woman core of you rather than the male core of you, then you can like find its language that doesn't necessarily. That's not the same necessarily with the dominant language that we all speak.
Yeah, actually, when you say all of this, it's interesting because I think that through the lens of that conversation, the pussy portal and the interaction with the ego, which to me more and more as I move through the space in my life, I recognize that the ego is actually just the wounded child that wrote this whole program for us to survive.
Interesting.
And it just wants to survive, and it hasn't fully grasped if we're not enrolling the child into saying, hey, I'm a woman now. I'm a man now, and I've integrated all of these lessons, and we get to go on this ride together. Do you want to play and do this thing you love to play? And do this thing, you don't have to take it. You don't have to shut us down. We actually get to integrate. And it's a different conversation than like, ooh, bad ego, like, fuck my ego death. Like, yes, and actually, it's a child. It's
That's
the
beautiful.
Child part of us.
That's much nicer than the concept of like the father tyrant, asshole.
Exactly.
I like the wounded boy or the wounded child.
Yeah.
Because then it makes us forgive patriarchy and bring it in.
Or they work
somewhat.
together instead.
Right, yeah.
Where it's like the mother aspect, the mother archetype, the father aspect, so the masculine and the feminine get together to say, okay, hey child, I'm going to enroll you and I will hold you radically accountable. Yeah. And the radical accountability to continue integrating that into the space and being in full union with self.
This thing of the union with the self, the hieros gamos, right?
Yeah, holy marriage.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so this I felt that too, of the wounded little boy and of this thing around the ego when we scold him for being so linear. Like you were saying, to work in the old paradigm, you have to be like a fake man, right? Was something we said about being in the feminine body. So now we look at the men who are in those spaces. And what are they experiencing? For a lot of them, it looks like, right? It looks like they are also sort of half men who are pushing themselves, keeping themselves in the office really late, forcing themselves to meet externalized stories of what will validate them instead of being connected to their bodies. And so the hieros gamos for all of us,
right?
That integration space of what do I feel, right? The feminine, what do I feel? What's happening here? And then the masculine of how can I be in service to that? Not how can I shut that down and work around it to get
or
my
how
thing.
can I buy it, own it,
possess
use it as a
yes.
trophy, whatever, penetrate it, whatever, discard it, seduce it, discard it, all that bullshit with the it. Yeah, the truth is that men in the process are stunted emotionally, and also I think sexually, like they have a hard time receiving. They have, because when you're trained by the system to always be in charge and do without really knowing what you're doing, you don't have the pleasure of receiving in passive space.
Yes, I think we're all very wounded around receiving. I think if you think of all of us sharing, all of us men and women sharing the cosmic cunt idea of one experience in our consciousness together, we push things through all the time as a culture individually. Push it, keep going, push. And if you think of that as a pussy receiving that traumatic push, right?
Yeah, it's like assaulting.
Yes, and so we all then become a little bit like, oh, I don't know about receiving. Can I receive? Because so much of what you've received before was kind of thrown at you. That makes sense? Or
Yeah. Because when you're young, a lot of that receiving feels abusive. Because you do not have agency. You know, you're just a child. Speaking of the wounded child, you can't say yes or no. So it just kind of all comes at you, and you gotta protect yourself from the pain.
Yes.
But now we have agency, and we can receive in adulthood and be integrated and grow.
And it's a process, of course, of like unpacking all of that within us, right? Because we experience the world through the filter of our physical bodies and what we're able to perceive. And then on top of that, we experience it through all of the social and cultural and learned filters that we pile on top of it. And so, for us, it's a really fun process. Like what we like to do is in play with joy, unpack these things and really look at them. Because for me, I feel like it's a really, if you get really oversimplified with it, it really comes down to the difference between fear and faith. And if we look at patriarchy, it comes from a place of fear. Okay, we have agriculture, which we shift from being hunter-gatherers and just receiving the earth's bounty, and monitoring our movements so that we're in a position to receive it. When we switch to agriculture, we take fertilized seeds and we plunge them into the earth and force the earth to give her bounty to us when we want it, exactly what we want, right? And so when we shift from egalitarian societies where the whole community is sharing together to societies where there's property and lineages, that's where we have patriarchy, because it comes from the fear that your genes and your offspring are not going to be provided for based off the work that you do, right? If we're all living in community and we're all sharing together, there's no fear, because if I have, then you have. We're together.
Well, a point that's important at this moment, I feel, in relation to that, is that, a lot of the fear is the paranoia of inheritance, as you said, right? And also the fact that the man had no way of knowing who was their child, unless they kept the woman basically imprisoned in the house with no access to any other male in the universe ever.
Yes, and that's
but now we have DNA. So, like, for the first time, basically, at least like in written history, I don't know what was happening in matriarchy. Maybe those women knew it. But like for the first time within, the patriarchy, we can identify the offspring without doubt genetically, so we no longer need that shit. Because men know. Now, they don't have the need to like give the name, their last name to the woman and their child to identify it as theirs and all that, because, they don't have anything to worry about. They can find out with a simple paternity test. So it's a good time for like this consciousness to be stirred.
Yes. Speaking of the fun of it, do you want to say something?
Oh yeah, and I was gonna say, I think what we need to get away from is the idea that it's like only my offspring deserves to have resources. It's like we're a collective as humans, not just as humans, as a planet. We're a collective. We're all together. If some part of us is suffering, we all feel it, whether we feel it consciously or not.
Such a good point. The numbness of being unconscious, and then pain information is coming through and we're not interpreting it. So this comes back to the body and the fun of tuning into the body and allowing that to guide you, right? Like all of these stories about like patriarchy, like it's all very important, right? Like good, and I'm just gonna hold it like that. Okay, so it's so all of that stuff, if it juices you up to look at that, if it really like turns you on to understand where it came from and then like use that to inform like what you're giving yourself permission to feel and experience now, that's awesome. All the history, all the philosophy, all the arguments, like yes, right? But I think that on its most primary basic level, pleasure and consent in every moment, right? Like that's it. Like,
yes,
what's in my pleasure and what do I consent to?
Right.
Is this conversation?
And no harm done.
No harm done.
Right.
And that's such a big breakthrough for the person trying to say no, right? For people who are on one side or the other, everybody's struggling with it, right? So for the people who feel like, is it going to hurt this other person if I say no? What's going to happen? The pleasure of being like, no, and no harm, no foul. This is just where my boundary is. And
right,
like,
exactly.
You're allowed to now take your energy to whatever space what juices you up. And when we loosen up into that, I feel like that overarching image of the interconnected planet and of the energy flowing between us, right? That becomes easeful instantly when we're tuned into ourselves and allowing that to guide us and allowing that to guide our communication.
Yeah. And we are at the moment, I mean, I know I keep bringing it back to like, I don't know, sociology, anthropology, or some such thing.
It juices you up. That's the whole point. The juice is the same, no matter what the topic is. If you're in your juice, it's kinesthetically transmitted to us, and that's where it's at. It doesn't matter what the topic is. So tell us about the sociology.
No, I feel that we are at a moment where we no longer can afford not to be a collective, because the earth needs us to be together, united, in order to save ourselves, our place on it, right? And the planet's not going to disappear, but Earth as we know it is going to. And we were saying earlier, before you joined us, Sarah, that, I mean, I was saying that I feel that our original sin as mankind, not womankind, as mankind, is to separate God from the earth.
I agree.
Yeah. So perhaps one of these collective tasks is to reunite our God, whoever our God is, with Mother Earth, where we come from and where we hope to survive.
Totally. And as I hear you say that, I feel a sweep of energy down my leg, down to my foot, right? Because when we talk about connecting to the earth, we become more conscious of our identity as part of
exactly.
And
right.
It's intellectual until you feel that sweep down your leg and then the rebound back up from the earth. And then we go, I can talk about this until I'm blue in the face, but I know it feels better when I'm connected. And if I'm allowing myself to be guided by feeling, it becomes very simple to continue pursuing and fostering and growing that relationship or awareness.
Exactly. Yeah. And I feel like, I mean, especially the rich, especially like that 1% who have so much. They really don't need, anything else. They've achieved all that they'll ever need in their lives. They more than anyone should kind of, listen to this message and embrace it, because if they were relaxed enough and safe enough and conscious enough to share, the riches and the goods that they have been blessed to have with everybody else, that would make such a huge difference, if we could find a way for every country to agree on some basic laws and then have everyone there, regardless of like race or socioeconomic status or like whatever, all of that stuff, follow those few rules, the future of the earth would be much brighter.
Yeah, I mean, it brings me back to pleasure and consent, right? Making agreements. What turns you on? Juicy invitations, right? We can think for ourselves about what would be best from this parameter. And then you try and tell that to someone. And if you're not sharing that kinesthetic transmission with them, they'll be like, great idea. I'm going to go back to my $1 million condo. See you later, right? Like it's not. But when you make it juicy for people, to be like, hey, you're a super rich person. You have everything in the world and you're still not totally happy and fulfilled. What's up? I've got something for you that can make you more happy and fulfilled than you've ever. And it's not a product. It's not an object. And it's not a retreat. And it's not a departure. It's the food. Everything you've had up until now is the menu. Are you hungry? This is the food, right? Like it's ready for you. It's just for you. We made this plate. Like yum, yum, yum. Right. And so I think it's about really like helping people to become aware of how much better their own personal experience can be. Just better, not more moral, not more
Oh yeah,
right?
morality's got
Just
nothing to
fucking
do
fun.
with it.
You'll
Right.
like it more. You'll like it more
Yeah.
when you're connected to
Yeah.
your body and the earth and you're giving away your abundance.
Yeah.
You'll like it.
So tell me a little bit some of the events as examples of how they manifest or this big greater project, the events that you had at the Cosmic Cunt Church.
Sure. So we had daily meditation or movement practice every day around the time of opening. Focusing on embodiment was huge throughout our process. So we had consent circles where, we had
And what's a consent circle?
a consent circle can take a lot of different shapes depending on who is leading it.
The moderator.
Yeah. So we had one that was a lot more, it had an anti-capitalist sound healing in it and very much grounded in theory around the historical roots of oppression and things like this. And that is so, like, we love every flavor, right? So we put out that flavor for, we had anarchists and punks in the same space at the Church of the Cosmic Cunt and all this pink lace is great. And then a week later, I led a workshop it was so concise. It was like an hour and we dropped directly into breath. And we did this simple exercise about tuning into your yes and your no. And there was very little cross talk and we just moved energy through the circle. We had mask workshops. We had something called the mask, yes.
As in Jungian mask or
Balinese masks.
Oh, Balinese masks.
Yes.
It's like the technique for creating the mask was like a Balinese mask. It's actually Akil Apollo Davis, incredible worker. He does mask therapy. It was possibly for me, aside from Sarah's talk on plant sex, was my favorite, most impactful workshop I've been to in a very long time. Really, like, he led us through this beautiful walking meditation where you enter the void space, the space of timelessness where you were never born, you will never die, you will never go anywhere, you will never be anywhere. And you get to really step into the body in that way that Frida loves to juicily talk about, like that ultra presence where you can feel every single tendon moving in your body. And there's a slowness about it, that it's not about being slow, it's about being fully with every single muscle in your body.
Oh yeah, slowing down is really helpful because things here are so fast in America. Not the rest of the world, but America for sure. So you wear the mask during that meditation?
So initially in this iteration, because he does different things, and the process with the mask is very beautiful, very spiritual, very integrated process where you have to fly to Bali to have someone make them, and then they only make them with a certain type of wood, and then they paint them 40 times white and then 40 times another one, and each one has an archetype. And so as you're going about your walking meditation in this particular workshop, he would come around and place a mask on your face, and suddenly, somehow, inexplicably, that you don't know the face you're wearing, you become the face. And you embody the download, because there's something really beautiful about the way the brain and the being, the body as a receptor, as this radio transmitter that's like completely interconnected with so much information beyond the five senses. The Egyptians would say there's 132. And so the body somehow knows what the intention behind, or that was woven, that was literally prayed into this mask for the person to receive that download, and then you embody that.
I love that. Embodying the download of like a Balinese artist or the shamanic download.
So then we move from spaces like that to things like the smutty, slutty sleepover. Where we all wore wigs and got dressed up and opened the space at like 9 o'clock at night. And then we were screening like hilarious short art porn, and normalizing the presence of sexuality in a public space, and opening people up to just having these conversations around consent and cuddling and ooh, that's really sexy to me. And like, oh my God, this is not right. What is this? Right. And this very, very playful, free form space, but always, no matter what thing, Balinese dancing and yoga classes and smutty, slutty sleepover and yoni pujas in our house. Intro to, sensual.
Yeah, intro to Dom was great, and embrace your inner slut.
So intro to Dom gives you very basic information on how you can dominate your partner?
Yes.
Or access your inner inner dominant.
Yeah, it was a workshop from Carrie of Vicarious here in Miami, and she was doing a very much a soft 101 introduction to kind of the basics of Dom and submissive power dynamics, what a responsible Dom looks like, safe words and things like that, and then a demonstration. So one of our priestesses was tied up and spanked and some other things, and this was the day that I had my mother and my sister arrive in Miami. And my mother, who's really done a lot of work to be open with all of these things, you know, is like, okay, we're all the way in Miami, I'm gonna come to your workshop for the very first time, and she like walks in to like Carrie spanking this girl, and it was just but
Where's your mom from?
New York.
Okay.
But this is what the work is all about, right?
Yeah.
Is
yeah.
integrating.
Exactly. Oh, yeah.
Integrating, allowing
Bringing our mothers in. That's a big part of the work.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Allowing the chips to fall where they
and
may.
our daughters. Yeah.
Communicating about what comes up for us. My mom sat on the confessional couch and looked me in the eye and expressed to me how uncomfortable she was, but that she still loved me and wanted to support me. And I was able to say to her, instead of arguing and defending what we're up to and all this stuff of the triggers and the ego, right?
Right.
I was able to look my mom in the eye and be like, Mom, like, thank you for sharing with me about how you feel. This isn't just so that I can get affirmed by you on my art project. It's because I want to be integrated with you in my life. This is how I feel. I hear how you feel. I want to bring us closer and closer to the spot where we're both in our pleasure and in our consent, right? So,
yes. And I want to share about my favorite event. So one of our friends, Veronica, she is a trans woman, and she recently got her breasts. And so we hosted her debut, part of an event series we had on Sundays called Tits and Mass. And instead of tits and ass, we were holding mass. And we debuted her breasts. And this unfolded really organically. You know, we had planned to do it in a special way, and that didn't happen. But we were out together, and she told me the tale of her transition and of what finally getting breasts meant to her, and how, you know, the risks that she was taking on by now like fully embodying her true gender identity, and all and I shared with her my story of when I got breasts, and then we painted eyeballs and protective sigils on her breasts.
That's lovely.
And paraded them and had a really fun, juicy photo shoot.
Oh, that's great.
And so I bring that up just because I want to reiterate that what we're after is true, like everyone feeling really comfortable and juicy to express their desires.
Right. And to shame the body.
Yes, to be truly who they are. Okay. And if the community is not having the bandwidth to fulfill those desires, no, that doesn't feel good to me. And it's like, okay, cool, moving on, you know?
Yeah. What was your talk, Sarah, that was mentioned just now?
So my talk is about the way that plants and non-human organisms sexually reproduce, and kind of about the history of the evolution of biological sex. How it's just, you know, we originally were all single-celled organisms reproducing by cloning, and then, you know, an evolutionary adaptation, sexual reproduction. So you can make a totally novel organism by combining the DNA of two completely separate organisms, right? Yeah, so it was just about that, and like all the different ways that, you know, flowers bloom and their petals are their pussy, and they have all their spermatophores on the stamen, and they go poof, and like, you know, bees and bats help spread the pollen. You know, there's a lot of different ways to get it on. And I just like to, I like to embrace the spectrum. I also think that, it in a like really fun, playful way, it shows people that it's like, okay, their masculine and feminine do exist. And as humans, you know, we generally tend to lean towards one or the other, but that's not necessarily true. Even the way that people are born, you know, there's intersex people, and it, you know, biological sex itself as well is a spectrum. And so, yeah, so it's just...
the spectrum definitely, you know, again, is de-emphasized by the dominant culture.
Yes.
And even, you know, I feel that like even queer politics has gone too far in the sense that you have to take a stand and, you know, identify, because I feel like in our lives we should be free to evolve and maybe like, be gay, for one period and then, be something completely different later and not have to go back in the closet every time we want to change, because
Yes.
it was so hard coming out the first time and all of that. It's much better to just embrace like polysexuality, some sort of like, fully developed amorphous sexual identity. And that way you don't have to like take the tiny categories.
Exactly. Yeah, because the story of gender is just this culture's story of it. Other cultures have different stories about it, and the way I feel about it is, if you want to make up your own, and everyone in your, and you're not hurting anyone, I
Go
will.
ahead and do it.
I will
Yeah.
tell that story for you.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
I
Yeah.
support your story.
Yeah, and we support all the hermaphrodites because after all, they're the wisest ones, right? So
The two spirit.
the two spirit, who for so long they were just like castrated without anybody even knowing most of the time. Like at birth, someone would make a decision. Yeah.
Choose wrong sometimes, or not wrong, but choose in a way that didn't necessarily
Like,
align
choose
with
to
that
fit
person.
in. Yeah. Choose to like not, again, speaking of shame, like shame the family, or have like the outlier, the strange one. The changeling.
Yes. We've been talking about the strange one, the changeling. So it's not to make one side right or wrong, right?
Yes.
Like in some seasons, being conservative is what keeps you safe and allows things to progress. And in other
you
seasons,
gotta survive.
right, being more liberal and being more diverse allows for the flourishing of the abundance of life, right? And so I think what we're really recognizing is just entering into this moment when like the weird and the strange and the outer edges and the fullness of the spectrum, that we don't have to be afraid of that and squash that down in order
Right.
to survive.
Right.
Instead, the time is ripe for that celebration, and the sun is shining and the ground is fertile,
Yeah.
and everybody's
Yeah.
hungry
Yeah.
and wants
Yeah.
to eat of that
Yeah.
of that freedom and of that
Right.
pleasure, and that
Right.
it's safe now to come out and play, right?
Right.
We're in that new
Right.
season, we're in that new paradigm. So
Right.
that's
Yeah, it's the Aquarian age.
yes, exactly.
And while we have these freedoms, we have an obligation, I feel, as women to take full advantage of them. Because, we didn't always have them. We may not always have them. There are many, many cultures around the world. We're talking about billions of people who are still repressed, We all know where they are and how hard it is for them to even like get out of the house and drive a car. So we owe it to all of our sisters and fellow goddesses who have no voice, to speak up and express this. So I think it's very valuable that we do when we're not like at risk of being imprisoned for it.
Yes. Yes.
I would say this. Obligation feels heavy for me because the microcosm is the macrocosm. As much as I am responsible for the experience of my sisters and for what happens across the earth, I am also this one sovereign body with my traumas and my inheritance and my vision and my victory. And so to me, the languaging around it, and this is just splitting hairs, but it's for my own, right?
The hairs, yeah.
For me, the languaging around it feels much juicier when I think about the opportunity rather than the obligation that I have, right? To kinesthetically transmit my juice and my joy and my openness and my exercise of that freedom bigger and louder and more when I want, and smaller and not at all and behind closed doors and for no one when I want, because that is what preserves this vessel to transmit another day.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, so for me, all that languaging about fighting for other people, because that used to really compel me. I used to want to be an evangelist. I used to be an activist, and I would protest, and and that stuff really just what you resist persists. Exactly. And so as we
can you talk a little more about that? What does it mean? What you resist persists for you?
So for me, a way that really resonates for me, it's going back to the conversation about the body, right? So when we're afraid, when we feel pain, there's a contraction. The energy isn't flowing. So when we're contracted, we're resisting something. And when something is resisting, you're just hitting up, And so when we actually open up and are receptive and acknowledge that the body is something that allows us to tune into this yes. What feels easeful? I'm relaxed. My shoulders are back. I'm standing up straight. You know, I'm not, you know, my toes are perfectly, you know, just lingering there. They're not curled up. I'm not hunched over. I'm just here, and I feel open, and everything is just moving through me. That's really easeful. And from that space of presence, because fear is also, it's like either I'm in the past or I'm in the future. I'm not now. And in the now moment, I can really just be in that portal of possibilities, and I can choose my perception. It's like, what do I choose to perceive? I have an obligation. Ooh, that feels heavy. Now I have a responsibility. I don't know. Can I do this? This is a lot. Oh my God. What the fuck?
I can tell you haven't. You're not a mom, right?
I'm not. And then
being a mom, I'm so used to, you know, obligations and responsibilities, you know, so it's a different place. You know, I just have to say that. Yeah, because like you put yourself after your obligations and responsibilities to the, you know, the one you love more than yourself. So maybe that's why I speak so easily of these words, because I have a 19-year-old daughter, so I've lived 19 years with it and embracing it, you know, totally embracing it and loving it. But also knowing that it's not a choice for me. I made that overall choice initially, and then I'm good with that.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's precisely it when you talk about mothering, right? And this is kind of a shift in the way we're thinking about ourselves too. That like, are we resisting mothering, right? Like my mom chose to have me, was very joyful in that decision, and never, you know, throughout her life did she not want to have me. And yet there were times where the ways that she fulfilled her obligations or her whatever, you know, also were difficult for her. And so what I'm interested in is, sounds like what you're talking about is this kind of thing where you're mothering and embracing the act of mothering, and also mothering yourself at the same time, of aligning your energies so that your obligations don't feel like weights, and instead they feel like joyous celebrations. The other thing I just wanted to say about what you resist persists is that where energy goes, where attention goes, energy flows. So if you're resisting something, you're looking at it and you're going, no. Right now, this is an intellectual version of it versus the body version. You're looking at it and you're going, no. You're focusing your energy and your attention going, no, no, no. You're keeping it in this conflict when your energy is focused up. I don't want that. So like when you stop resisting that thing and allow it to move through, your whole scene changes because that block is now not where it's flowing through.
Right. I agree with you. I totally agree with that. And I mean, I said what I said in a very inclusive way, in a very supportive, you know, mother goddess way. Just that as we move from maiden to mother, I haven't gotten to crone yet, but you know, that's the wise time. We're you know, we give ourselves permission to move through, like, you know, our definition of different concepts, and widen it so we can be more than one, right? Yeah.
Yes.
So, okay, let's see. What else? What other questions? Would you like to tell me a little bit about how you each got to this place? Your personal journey of, you know, finding yourself as founders of the Church of the Cosmic Cunt?
Sure. Should I start with this one, or would one of you like to start with this one?
I don't know. How you feeling, babe?
I mean, it's sort of, all right.
Yeah, let's go.
I mean,
The Cosmic Cunt conference.
So it starts from a place of being disempowered in my body with my sexual partners, from being an overachieving Ivy League kind of a kid, a lot of pushing, a lot of not being connected to my body, feeling like a brain in a meat sack, feeling like when my sexuality was starting to happen, that was such a powerful departure from the rest of the scene. Like, oh my God, I can finally just go off and be with my boyfriend and do a different one, right? From that place through the joke of the Cosmic Cunt at a yoga teacher training after it was over, of laughing about it, and then deciding that I was going to pursue it and go further with it. And I didn't know what that meant, and I didn't have a self-pleasuring practice. I wasn't You know, I wasn't the queen of orgasms or anything like that, but I really desired to feel what my pleasure was, discover that, and get it communicated. And then this whole sort of process is the outpouring of that, like personal journey and journey along with my sisters and with other people, of recognizing that we're not alone in this, of like, oh, why can't I just get these words out and feel what I want to feel? And then
so you came from a place of being what did you study? How did you get to organizing? Oh, something.
I wanted to study art. To study art, and then I wanted to study English, and the prerequisites were not for me. I didn't want to read deadwhitemen.com. You know, super over it. So I ended up doing a whole bunch of other things, East Asian studies, and living in South Korea for a long time, which is an interesting dynamic between men and women.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So that's my journey with it.
Yeah. Sarah.
So, I'll start with this, actually. When I went through puberty, my mom had always said to me, you know, like, you don't know how lucky you are. You know, you as a girl, like, you know, people are praising you for your intelligence. When I was a little girl in the 50s and the 60s, it wasn't that way, this and that. And I was like, yeah, Mom. Feminism is, you know, we already did it. Like, now ladies can do whatever they want, you know? Wow. And then going through puberty, kind of like understanding personally in my body the difference between men and women, you know, like going from being a child to being somebody who is viewed by our society as, like, I don't know, up for sexual consumption, you know, and just feeling the shift of the way that people's eyes were on me in the world, you know, and then and I realized how deep that wounding was. You know, I felt it in myself. I saw it in other people.
The male gaze.
The male gaze, but not just the male gaze. It's the male gaze, and it's also your 7th grade teacher telling you that what you're wearing is inappropriate because you wore a white t-shirt and it like rained a little bit and like your little training bra is showing from underneath, you know? It's like you're not like, you know, school dress codes. Oh, your shorts are too short, so you know, your shorts go past your fingertips on your thighs, so now you don't get to learn today. You have to spend the entire day in internal suspension. You know, it was stuff like that started to make me really rage against society. I didn't have the critical theory to understand exactly what I was raging against, but I knew it wasn't right. I knew I was mad.
That's beautiful.
Thank you. And then, you know, so I was just like an angry intellectual. And then, yeah, I went to school and kind of was able to understand the history and the context and the things around it. And in school I studied environmental science and anthropology. So I kind of came out of school with like a whole understanding of the plant world and like the little interconnectedness of creation independent of human society, or like intermingled with human society, and like the different ways that we have thrust ourselves upon it to end up where we are now. So that's like the background. And yeah, so I kept going deeper into that after I got out of school. Instead of pursuing academia, I decided to study more yoga, and then I ended up studying tantra and just kind of learning about the integration of the masculine and feminine. That's how I met this woman. And you know, she came back from Spain a couple years ago and was like, can I enroll you in something? She's like, it's called the Cosmic Cunt Conference, and it's happening right now. And it's never not happening, but now you know you're in it.
That's great.
And I thought it was hilarious. And it was so cute and so silly that I was like, what are you doing? You're doing an event? Okay, first one, let me cater it. And so that's how we began this journey together. This particular project itself, we did an event in Art Basel last year together at Churchill's, where I used to work. We met the owner of the gallery. She offered us a show, and we just went from there. And we really went crazy. We could have just spent like 2 months making our own art. Instead, we're like, let's get everybody we know involved. And I'm really glad we did, because
yeah, me too. I'm glad too.
it was just really beautiful, and it seems like this is our life now. So
Yeah, it raised the consciousness for sure.
we made a lot of lifelong connections
That's lovely.
and cemented others.
Yeah. Luna?
So for me, I came through this through Frida, and it's such a convoluted, crazy story, and it's actually not convoluted. It was just a perfectly cosmically choreographed appointment. You know, it's like meeting Frida was like, I met her on August 8th of last year. It was the Lionsgate portal. Don't know if you know what that is, but roar. It was time to graduate. And that's what it felt like. I actually had been on this, you know, awesome parties, you know, the whole night on some boat in Bushwick in Brooklyn. And then it was like 7 and someone was like, let's go to Castle Babes. And I was like, what is that? And they're like, let's just go. And I said, okay, yes. Because in reality, a lot of why I'm here is because I'm deciding to say yes to the yes. So and saying no to the no so I can say yes to more of the yes. And meeting Frida was fantastic because I didn't know what to expect. I just was like, I'm having such a great fucking time today. And I would love to keep dancing. And I love the idea of going and listening to my friend Dreamy, like play more music. I'm obsessed with her. And I get there and I walk through a window onto like a rooftop. And there's this woman waving at me. And I'm like, I don't know anyone at this party, but like she's waving at me. And I'm like, okay, hi. And she just kept really waving. And I come up to her. And as I'm walking up to her, she suddenly bursts into tears. And
I can see that, and I just met her.
Yeah. And then suddenly we're crying together and we're hugging for like 5 minutes. And I'm completely sober because I haven't been drinking since like 2013. And I'm like, don't really dabble like that. And so I'm having this very like impressive moment of just like this strange cosmic sensation of this feedback loop where I'm still unpacking like what were those sensations that we were experiencing together, because it felt like, oh my gosh, sister, yes, thank you so much, you are here. Like I was like really doing so much work to just get past like liberating myself and shedding to the point where it was like, and there Frida was at the checkpoint. And simultaneously when I came down here to Miami, which again was like another invocation, she told me about it at like in January. And at that point I'd left New York indefinitely. I was like, I don't know when I'm going back to New York. Bye. I'm done. Not doing winter anymore. And let me go like travel and do this whole thing. And I was, in Dallas at the time, and I was like, oh, this is brilliant. And I'm going to Mexico to study with a medicine woman. So this is what my life is like. Let me get back to you about whether or not I'm coming to Miami. And one day, a month and a half into Mexico, I just woke up and I was like, I have to go back to Dallas right now. Like right now, I have to go back. And I didn't know, I felt like I was crazy. And then part of that, I just like, it was the first time I felt like I was crazy because, you know, when we talk about like listening to the pussy portal and the conversation and the language and like all of this thing around really identifying what's the yes, you know, I never questioned it until that day because it was illogical. And then I get on this bus, like I pack all of my things and I get on this bus and I'm like, okay, I'm going to go to Dallas. I'm going to pick up my things. And I call a friend. I was like, okay, I guess I'm going to Miami, you know, I don't know why, but I'm going to go to Miami, you know? And so I get here and I meet Sarah and I'm in love with this Pisces Versace queen. Oh yeah.
Mermaid Versace. It's
That's
mermaids wearing high art and puppet trash at the same time.
Right.
That's our
Love
aesthetic.
that. Yeah.
Also Muppet Versace. Yes.
Yeah.
I was in a bikini when I picked you up.
Oh my God. Yes. Because this really is what it's about, because I had experienced all these different levels of suppression, and where I'm in my life right now is like unboxing, you know, completely. And I gained so much permission from Frida for being all of the allness. You know, I'm like wearing nipple nipples out, and it's like, am I this
Exactly.
person right now?
Right, yeah.
You know, like, is this the person that I'm like, yes, I'm super into this, you know? And in reality, you know, Sarah coming to pick me up from the airport, I didn't know her, you know, up until, you know, like a month ago or whatever. And like, she was wearing a bikini, and it was like all the different contrasts and the context of the way that we're suppressing ourselves. I'm deeply interested in undoing that.
Yeah.
And I come from a background of, like, when we're talking about sex and religion, like, I grew up as a Jehovah's Witness.
Wow, now you're talking. You've come a long way.
Yes.
Goddess.
Yeah. Yeah. And I actually made a mental note, like, I'm not going to talk about that. Like, I'm going to keep that in my pocket.
Oh, come on. Well,
You
thank
know?
you for sharing.
And then it just feels
Because
like,
it shows the road traveled.
yes,
Yeah.
and the beauty of it, because
Yeah.
I deeply appreciate all of the things that I learned being in that. And it's like, it's not like I was like, oh, casually going. It's a whole lifestyle. It's like, you can't wear a certain thing. Your mom tells you look like a prostitute if you're wearing spaghetti straps. And like, well, my
Yeah,
mom,
yeah,
you know what
yeah,
I mean?
yeah.
And all of this like thing, and the weirdness around sexuality, and like masturbating, and like not doing that, and just being in a room with a boy, and like, you know, all of the things.
Right. It
you
was
know?
all a no.
And all of the suppression, and then adding the cultural components of, like, you know, being born into first generation Dominican woman in a very like Russian neighborhood, and like, you know, so it's all these like little different things of like just the constant suppression. And it's so perfect meeting Frida and meeting Sarah, because Sarah is like I don't know. I feel like you're like, I'm like, are you my alter ego? You're not. Like, you're also me. And like, also just like, I don't know. I feel complete in this space. And I love the complementarity and like this notion of community, and how we all bolster together as like, actually, Sarah, this was mentioned in Sarah's talk. I don't know if Sarah said it, but it's my favorite thing now. We are all symbiotic organisms in motion, part of a larger symbiotic organism in motion. And it like ties back to like this original like thing we were talking about, how like everyone tries to separate God from the earth and like make this whole thing. When in reality, God, it's just a semantic thing. Because when you look across the board, what does everyone say? The atheists, the different scientific theories, the different religions, God, this framework, is an energy that cannot be created or destroyed, always is and always was, can only be reshaped, redefined, and reformed. Period.
Hallelujah.
End of story. So we're all saying the
Hallelujah.
same thing.
Yeah.
So it's like, what's the lowest common denominator? Like, how can you separate yourself from yourself? Like, you can't. That's the biggest illusion, this illusion of separation.
Exactly.
I am that I am.
Right.
I am
That's
Frida.
the first
Frida is
name of
me.
God, by the way. I have it tattooed here in Hebrew. But
Exactly.
yeah, it's the first name of God that was given to Moses. I am. That's my
I
name,
am.
said God. Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I love that. I love the logic. Thank you for, that was like a very clear example of being led from your Cunt God, from the pussy portal, from that otherness. That's your truth, right? Yeah.
And I thank you for creating that space, because I was so nervous. I was like, my personality is like in my toes right now, and I couldn't find it. And then I was like, ah! So thank you, because you know,
You
we
have
get to
boundless
just
toes.
be. Yeah, we get to just be. And thank you. And
Yeah.
yes, I this is the background, and this is what we're working with, and we're all in it together, and it's fucking thank you.
Yeah.
Fucking thank you is right.
Thank you.
I want to add one more concept to
Yeah,
you, because
please.
we've spoken a little bit about our interconnectedness and how we met, and the feelings and the tears. And surely you've had this experience before where you meet someone and it's like deja vu. You've known them in a bunch of lifetimes and you just feel that, right? And so I along the way, I've become really juiced up by that feeling. It's one of my favorite feelings, is to find myself in a room full of people who all feel like that to me. And so through the filter of the Cosmic Cunt Conference, what's in my pleasure? What do I consent to? Where do I want to be? What story can I let go of so I can stay at this party a little bit longer, because this party is where the whole universe is right now, right? The infinite surprise party is what I call that moment when you meet someone or you feel something and it's like, everything led me here, not just my logic, but everything. And you follow, I think, right? We follow the heart, the Cunt portal, that womb wisdom, that feeling beyond the logic. And if you follow that, even if you don't, if you just wake up to it, you can discover that in any moment you're in this infinite surprise party that you planned for yourself with all of space-time. And all you're doing is waking up to it. So it's the poem that describes the same idea of there being only one energy that can't be created or destroyed. It just gets moved around. And so what resonant frequency do I want to be vibrating all this matter at? And who do I want to vibrate next to around that? And what
vibe is your tribe.
Yes, your vibe is your tribe.
Your vibe is your tribe.
And so that's sort of what's happening now as we move into the church of the cosmic. We're even considering leaving the word cunt off. and right, just letting it be implied, because the church of the cosmic is sort of creating that umbrella for people with lots of different thoughts to find themselves in the same vibration of unified or dancing with this resonance and connectedness and what it feels like. And I found you again. Like, yes, let's play, right? And so, yeah, I just wanted to add that because I'm very much at the infinite surprise party with both of you, and it's my favorite feeling.
Yeah.
You too, to walk into your house today.
Oh, yeah, I feel right there.
I mean, another scene from the infinite surprise party, to walk into all of this art that is like what I was studying as a teenager and drooling over Judy Chicago and dreaming
my
of,
mother.
right?
Yeah.
And so thank you for being another host site of the infinite surprise party to gather.
Yeah. Well, I feel that the beauty of that surprise party is that we will all find each other.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And we'll be right on time.
It's the cosmic choreography.
It's
right. You know, because it's like outside linear time. It's like nature's cyclical time.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yes.
And it's a process, because it's not like Frida was like, okay, Luna, on August 8th, 2018, we're going to meet up at 7:00 in the morning. No, it's like, okay, to me, I think it's like, okay, once this process, this seedling has burst open, and I'm in this space of openness and receptivity, and I'm saying yes, and I'm interested in being free, you know, I'm going to walk through a gate, and Frida, I'm going to walk through a window, crawl through a window, and be on a rooftop in Brooklyn and Bushwick, and at 7:00 in the morning, and Frida's going to be there, and she's like, welcome, sister.
Yeah.
You made it. You made it. And the feedback loop from this non-linear time thing, right? Because time is this construction we place on top of this rhythm in order to collaborate together.
Exactly.
You know, and in reality,
yes.
it's like feeding back and forth, because when I got to Miami, what I realized was like, I was like, Frida, I feel like the old 80-year-old versions of us, just like, we're also in this moment, sending back some sort of like prayer, gratitude, invocation, something like we accomplished amazing things together that I can't even begin to fathom.
But that's because it's ready. It's waiting, you know, the tribe is here, our people are here. As you said, you know, there is more readiness at this moment. So you just like found the space and you called them in and they came, you know, and the more you do it, the more
come.
Exactly.
If you build it, they will come.
They will come. We are all coming. So, and for our listeners, our viewers, we'll be back together. This is not our last podcast.
Definitely
This
not.
is only our first podcast.
Yes.
And, you know, reach out to us. I'm going to post all the Instagram links and connections, but you can find them at the Church for Cosmic Cunt.
Yes, definitely reach out to us on this idea
Instagram.
of the feeling. If you're feeling this,
Exactly.
come join us.
If
Talk
you
to us
feel
about it.
This, yes.
The
exactly.
Instagram is the Cosmic CC.
That's it.
Yes, that's the Cosmic Cunt Instagram.
You can DM them. You can DM me at Speak Sex Podcast. You can also ask questions on the story. When I'll be posting the stories from the episode, I will be giving you that option to ask questions, and we'll all share them.
Oh, yes.
Everybody will receive them. You can email speaksexpodcast@gmail.com and ask more questions, how to join, how to be involved, how to stay in touch, and I'll send out all your messages. So stay connected, stay listening. you ladies, goddesses, would you like to add something before we close?
Just a little bit more personal information for us.
Okay.
The Cosmic CC is our shared Instagram. We're a collective. So
Right.
for our individual Instagrams, I am Frida Future, and you can find me FRIDA, Frida Future on Instagram.
I am Luna, and my handle is The Junk Folder. So junk, like one man's giant's treasure. I'm The Junk Folder.
And my treasure.
Yeah.
Yes, I
I'm
love you.
Very cheesy right now. And I'm Sarita, period, Brujita. So that's S-A.
With a J.
Yeah, it's
Yes, with a
cute.
J.
Yeah.
Sarita, period, Brujita. Means little witch.
Mhm.
That's right.
Thank you, everybody, for listening. I'm Eve Eurydice, and I had a wonderful time with my sister goddesses. I'll have them back very soon.
Yay.
And thank you for trusting us as your sex whisperers. Until we're back, please speak sex.
And may the Cosmic Cunt be with you.
Amen.
Thank you, Eve.
Thank you.
If I could make love incessantly, I would be God.